That's how relationships are built. What's up, everybody? Welcome, welcome. This is Relationship-Led Growth Live, and I am Mike Grunberg, CEO of Proofpoint Marketing. I get people coming in here slowly but surely. When you jump in, say hi. Let me know where you're from. I want to know who's all here. I am flying solo today. Joseph's on vacation. He's usually my wingman, if you will, for these. So bear with me. I'm manning the chats and everything, all on my lonesome. Like I said, if you're coming in, say hi, pop a message in the chat. I want to know you're here. If you've got a question, pop it in there. I want to make sure I can answer it. If you have a thought that you want to bring up, let me know. We're gonna. I usually open things up toward the end for some live conversation, Q&A type things for anyone who's interested. Lately, we haven't had any takers, but I'd love it if anybody wants to jump in later today. All right. We got lots of things to talk about. I'm going to be sharing some new concepts we've been working on at Proofpoint based on some data and learnings and things like that. So this will be the world premiere, if you will. First time we're going to be talking about it. I've teased some of it in our past conversations and some of my recent LinkedIn content, but this will be the first time I'm going over these things in public. So love any feedback too. Curious how these things resonate, etc. So the topic for today is building a referral flywheel. And the reason we're talking about referrals is you've probably heard me talk about, or folks on our team talk about, that revenue is an outcome of great relationships. And what also is an outcome of relationships is referrals. And referrals are a great way to drive revenue. The common thing that I'll generally hear is that referrals aren't scalable. And I'm here to tell you today that that is simply not true. It's really more of a mindset that's incorrect. It's a mindset that's not focused on relationships. It's a mindset that's not focused on how to build referrals and how to build an actual referral ecosystem and how to build that flywheel. So when we talk about referral flywheel, we got to talk some definitions here. So first is, what's a flywheel? A flywheel, because it's a word that gets thrown around a lot. I feel like everybody has a flywheel of some sort, but I don't know that most of them are actually flywheels. A flywheel is something that has inertia, that once you get it going, it keeps going on its own and speeds up. The more you put into it, the faster it goes, and the faster it goes, and the more it puts out. That's a flywheel. So inertia is a really core component that I think is often forgotten when we talk flywheels. The other thing that we need to define is referrals. What is a referral? So if anybody that's live, curious on your thoughts on what a referral is, keep those in mind. Most of the time people think referrals, they think referral partnerships, channel partner programs, and say like client referrals. And those are all true. The problem is twofold. Number one is that usually those sources, even though they're true, are oftentimes not operationalized appropriately, so you don't get enough scale. And number two is that that's just a small part of where referrals come from. And if we're talking about scaling referrals as a channel, then we have to think much more broadly about what a referral actually is. So if we think about referrals, here's what they really are. It's not just clients. It's not just employees. What we want to think about is current, past, and future. And you might be going, future, what do we predict in the future? Yes and no. So we'll take these one at a time. So first of all, on the current side, these are folks currently in your network that are clients, employees, colleagues, partners, advocates, influencers and key opinion leaders, friends and family. This one's, we'll talk about sort of volume for each of these in a minute. Industry groups you're part of. Competitors. People forget about these. We'll talk about that in a second as well. Now let's think about your past. Folks you've interacted with in the past. Could be past clients, often forgotten. Past employees, often forgotten or oftentimes not possible based on how they were treated. We'll talk about culture in a little while here. Past colleagues, similar to employees. Past competitors. And now let's think about future. Also, clients, employees, pretty straightforward. Future partners, future advocates, future key opinion leaders, future industry groups. When we think about future, what we want to be thinking about is, how can I spot these people early, specifically if we're talking about future employees, future advocates or influencers, key opinion leaders. And you should also be thinking about, how can I help them get there? Okay, so maybe you see someone who's up and coming in your industry. Really smart, really knowledgeable, has a great presence, starting to get out there. Could you help them become an influencer? Could you give them your access to your audience, co-create content with them, etc.? We'll get into some more tactical things in a bit. But could you get them there to where they become a current influencer that's already in your network? And there's, the law of reciprocity. You help them get there, they're going to want to send you referrals. Okay? So we have to think about referrals much, much, much more broadly than what most people usually think about them as. Okay? So with that, thinking about the referrals and the referral sources, it's also important to think about, where does the scale actually come from? Because I mentioned here there's a flywheel, and I've also mentioned in the past, referrals are scalable. Relationships are scalable. The question is, where does the scale come from? Okay? Let's make that bigger here. So there's a concept I want to put out at you, is there is a relationship between relationship strength, so just somebody who is aware of you, maybe has built up some affinity toward you through content or something like that, all the way to friends and family at this end. And there's a relationship between that relationship strength, the referral effort required for you to both ask for that referral, likely, but definitely for them to respond and provide that referral. And also a relationship with, where's the volume? Okay? So again, most people will focus on clients and partners, and maybe they'll also look at, friends and like close relationships they've built. Now here's the issue with that. Clients and partners, that's probably the hardest referral to get, because there's a lot of personal relationship capital that needs to be invested to make that referral, right? Because they know you well, they know the person they're referring well, and they have to be very careful to make the right match. You're thinking about it much more in detail. Well, do I want to introduce this person? Do I not? What if What if I don't know them well enough? Is this going to blow back on me? Right? It's true for both clients and partners. Sometimes clients also, again, clients they don't owe you anything. Clients, customers, etc. They get your service and product, they pay for it, that's the value exchange. Okay? So the referral is extra. So you really have to have that strong relationship, and we'll talk about how to do a lot of these things in a minute. But these referrals are really hard. And there's also fewer of them because you don't have a ton of clients compared to the broader community. You don't have a ton of partners compared to the broader community. Friends and family, most of them don't have relevant referrals to give you, so the volume is really small. So the places where people focus are the hardest and the ones where there's the least amount. Now, they're generally the ones that are convert the best. So we got to remember that. But the most opportunity for scale is here up front. So how can we get more acquaintances, get more people aware of us, build affinity toward us so that they can refer us business? And then to better operationalize all these other things. Now, we're talking about relationship strength here. The important thing to remember here is reputation, right? So your reputation impacts how much referral business you can get. Part of this is obvious, right? You do good work, you deliver great results, you're much more likely to get a referral than if you don't. That one's straightforward. You have to be likable. That's part of your reputation. And you have to be trustworthy. And showing those three things in your marketing is how you portray that reputation up front, so that when people get to know you, they're much more likely to give you referrals. Now, along with that, we need to think about vectors of influence. Okay, so we already talked about all these various sources of referrals. I'm going to bring them up again here really quick. Okay, it's not just clients and employees and friends and partners. There's a much bigger ecosystem of referrals that you can tap into if you so choose. So within that ecosystem, what's important for you to understand is, what are these vectors of influence? Meaning, you have your target accounts, I'm sure. Who influences buying decisions within those accounts? You can have some internal people, you can have some external people. Understanding that ecosystem, those vectors of influence, is critical to get you the best referrals, the right referrals, as soon as possible, and prioritize those. So if you know that your target accounts or people in your target accounts generally respond to and pay attention to a particular key opinion leader in the industry, great. How do you get in front of them? How do you get them into your network, into your ecosystem? So that at first they'll start as an acquaintance. Maybe they'll first just be aware of you, then they'll maybe can have a conversation, they become an acquaintance, and they're more likely to give you a referral. And the further down they get on that relationship strength spectrum, the better referral they're going to give you. If you remember, now it's going to be harder to get it, etc., but more likely to convert. So thinking about those concepts together is an important way to structure your referral ecosystem and to build that referral flywheel. So, okay. What the heck's a referral flywheel? What does it look like? So there's a lot of important things to keep in mind here. You'll notice that culture is at the center here. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier. You can't really build referrals if you don't have a referral culture. And more so, if you don't have a culture that's built around your core point of view and people that can evangelize it. I'll dive into culture a little bit deeper in a minute. Outside of that, you have your ideas. That's your narrative. That's your point of view. You have your people. And you have relevant industry groups that you should be part of. All those three things are around your culture because your culture helps to amplify those things. Then we have the flywheel itself. Okay, so everything starts with affinity. Right? You can't buy affinity. Affinity is a spontaneous liking of something or someone. So something got them excited about your company. Now, that could be your ideas, that could be your people, that could be where your ideas were presented, so relevant groups. Okay? But step one is to get people excited about you, what you have to offer, your ideas, your product, etc. Okay? From there, that as you're building the relationship, that goes in a conversation. You want to find ways to really give people a reason to have a conversation with you. Not a sales conversation per se. That's not that we want that at some point, but that's not the primary objective. But we want the right people to want to have a conversation with you. That builds into an actual relationship over time. You want to then find ways to make a business relationship with you a no-brainer. Okay? Now, where do referrals come in? Along this entire path, so as somebody is going through this process with you from affinity to conversations to relationships, there are opportunities for them to make referrals and to accelerate somebody else's relationship with you or to start one. So let's assume you've got some great content out there. You put out great events. Maybe you have a podcast, maybe even an awesome newsletter. Maybe you put on a great in-person event, whatever it is. Okay. Maybe you have a really great recruiting process that everybody loves and they talk about, whatever. There's a bunch of different ways that you can build affinity. All right. That creates an environment where somebody could be willing to make what I call an affinity referral. They've never met you. They've never met you people personally, but they know enough about you and they've built an affinity to you where if somebody they're talking to that's in their network has a problem they're trying to solve that this person believes you could solve, it's no skin off their backs to say, hey, you should go check out XYZ company. That's an affinity referral. Again, if you remember this concept here, that all happens in this area here, in this orange highlighted area, because not a lot of social capital required. There's really very little risk to the person making that referral. It's like, hey, haven't done business with them, don't know exactly whether it's a good fit, but I think it might be. Check them out, right? That's a really easy referral to make. And you can scale that. Now, you can call that word of mouth. Sure, yes, it is. But you have to operationalize it. You have to create more opportunities for that to be able to happen. Okay? Once you get into conversation, once you've had conversations with people, now, again, they can also build an affinity to you through that, further affinity to you through the conversation. They can learn more about you. Maybe they've now talked to you or somebody in your company, and now they know more about what you do. Same thing happens. They see something from somebody in their network. Could be a fairly weak connection, and they go, oh, well, you should talk to so-and-so at XYZ company. They really know what they're talking about. They might be able to help you. Right? That's a much more personal referral. Requires a little bit more social capital, but still fairly easy. They're still generally an acquaintance. So again, going back to what we were just talking about, that's roughly still in this kind of orange area right over here. A little further down. Okay? Last but not least, once you have a relationship with somebody, it could be a client, it could be somebody that's going through your sales process, it could be a partner that you've built a relationship with, it could be a key opinion leader you've built a relationship with, but it's an actual relationship. You've had a bunch of communication with them. If it's a influencer, maybe you've done a bunch of co-marketing with them, whatever it is, they can now make a relationship referral. Now, let's remember, there's much more social capital involved here. People are going to want to really going to be careful about who they refer, especially if it's a client. We've already talked about that, right? But these referrals do happen, and these are the strongest. They're probably the ones that are going to build to a conversation the fastest. Sometimes you almost even bypass all the stuff that happens during the affinity phase, and the affinity gets built up kind of through osmosis, if you will, and then the conversation happens. More affinity gets built up, and you keep going. So it's an accelerator. Okay? So this is the concept of the flywheel, of the relationship flywheel. And again, it has inertia. The more you do things to build affinity, the more affinity referrals you get, which gives you more conversations. The more conversation referrals you get, which gets more people here, which again gives you more clients, more partners, more employees, all these other things that we talked about, all of this entire ecosystem here. Okay? More relationships, which then build even more relationship referrals. It is a genuine flywheel. Okay? Now, let's talk some more specifics here. I mentioned culture. You have to have a culture that facilitates referrals. Here's what I mean by that. There's really three core components. You need to have a clear vision and a narrative. And the reason for that is you have to have people in your organization, your entire team, all your employees. The vision has to be clear so that they get it, that they believe it, and they evangelize it. Not my words. I just had Allison Netzer on our podcast last week. Episode's going live soon. Highly recommend you check it out when it goes live. Amazing conversation about how culture impacts pipeline. But if your people can't get behind your vision and your narrative, that means they're not going to believe it. They're not going to believe in it. And they definitely aren't going to be able to evangelize it. All of these three things have to happen. And if your people aren't evangelizing it, you can't expect anybody else to. And good luck having clients that can evangelize it if they don't really believe in it. Okay, no matter how great your results are, they need to really believe what's behind it and what caused it. Okay? And you have to have your employer brand connected to your core brand. So that means that as you're bringing people in, as you're attracting talent, your business narrative has to be part of the reason that people want to come work for you. That's part of getting them to get it, to believe it, and to evangelize it. Ideally, you've done it in such a way that people want to work for you because of that. And when they come in, they get it and they already believe it. And maybe they are already even evangelizing it. Okay, so in our organization, we make relationship-like growth very public. We talk about it all the time. We have these events. A lot of our personal brand content throughout the organization is about it. A lot of our service offerings are all about it. So when we talk about, we put out case studies, they're all about it. A lot of our podcast episodes with guests we bring in tend to, in one way, shape, or form, relate to it. So when people come in to Proofpoint, they're generally already bought into this growth framework. They're generally already bought into a people-first culture, which is reflective of relationship-like growth. They are oftentimes already evangelizing or talking about it on their own because they get it and they believe in it and they want to talk about it. It makes sense to them. Which, again, going back to what we're talking about, your employees, your team are a huge part of your potential referral ecosystem, which oftentimes goes completely neglected. And I'm not talking about just creating an employee referral incentive. You can and you should, but only if these other pieces are in place. If they don't get it, if they can't get behind it, there's no way they're going to evangelize it no matter what incentive you put in front of them. So that's absolutely critical. Now, you also have to demonstrate referral giving. Okay? If you want people to give you referrals, I mean, there's the law of reciprocity, obviously, things like that. But also even just within your internal network, within your team, if they don't see leadership giving out referrals, they're going to be much more hesitant to do it themselves because they're maybe not going to see the benefit. They're going to go, well, why should I do it if my boss isn't doing it? Right? Why should I go ask for referrals if my boss doesn't want to give anybody referrals? And these referrals can take a lot of different, they can look very differently, okay? So you can help people get jobs. That's a referral. You could recommend people that came through your recruiting pipeline. You could recommend former employees that are maybe now looking for a job. You could even help people get jobs that are exiting your organization. I used to work for another agency owner who really wanted to make sure that the offboarding experience for employees was amazing. Because why burn bridges? So one of the things she did, and this is something we do at Proofpoint as well, by the way, is if somebody isn't working out, now unless they've burnt the bridge and they've done something, completely egregious to hurt the organization, different story. But if it's just not working out, she would use her network to help them find jobs. That's a kind of referral. And oh, by the way, that creates a number of other things. First of all, that person has a great experience and they go, wow, you should really go talk to so-and-so. Just because they had a great experience with you. They might refer you job candidates, which again, remember that flywheel. The more people come in your network, the more people can refer you business. Not to mention if you can help place that person with a client that's in your ICP that could do business with you. Well, now you might have just created a internal referral opportunity with that person. Okay? So remember that. One other thing is offer to make introductions. Okay? So this could be an introduction for somebody's podcast. It could be introducing somebody that's an upstart in the industry to like a podcast host or an event host to maybe get them a speaking gig, all those types of things. And make these things public within your organization. Share them in a Slack channel. Right? Or if you can't do it, be like, hey, I just met somebody that's really great at XYZ. If anybody knows somebody they should be in touch with, let me know. Or feel free to introduce them directly. Like those kinds of things. Okay? And recommend tools and vendors. Same thing. If people see you making referrals, they'll be much more likely to A, reciprocate, and B, do the same thing themselves. And the more people do it, karma works both ways, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Last but not least, and again, this is if these other two pieces are in place, this is technically you have to have clear vision and narrative first, demonstrate referral giving second, and then you can incentivize referrals after that. Number one is make referral asking easy. Make it easy within your organization. There are tools that can help you with this. There's a guy by the name of David Rush. Highly recommend you reach out to him, connect with him. He's got a platform called Small World. We had him on our show recently too. Interview should be going live as well about referral programs. They've got a platform that makes and operationalizes referral asking. Not saying you have to use that platform, but it's an option. Even if it's not that platform, help people like create templates, create referral asking templates for people to easily use. Okay? Create a list of organizations people should be part of. Make sure your CRM is up to date with kind of the people that are in there, what the relationship strength is, that kind of thing. Okay? So make the ask as easy as possible for your team internally. Because then they can ask for the referral when the time comes. And the easier you make it, the more likely they are to do it. It's sort of not really an incentive per se, but it's a nudge. You make it easy, they're more likely to do it. You can gamify it, you can create a contest of who makes the most referrals in a given period of time. Lots of things you can do from an incentive perspective. And then, last but not least, actually reward the referrals. So you could, if you have all of these other pieces in place, you could monetarily reward your employees or really anybody for referrals. And based on your business, you have to think about, do you reward just the introduction? Do you reward it based on business that comes in? Like you have to understand your own revenue model and cost to acquire and close rates and all this kind of stuff. So I can't tell you what you should do there, but you could do that. Okay? So, great. We're talking referrals. This all doesn't sound maybe as scalable as I was making it out to be. Here's the deal. The scale comes from operationalizing all of this. Okay, so looking for different ways you can do it across your organization. This is not just marketing. Literally, the referral channel is owned by everybody, just like your brand is owned by everybody, and that's no coincidence, because your brand is what's going to drive referrals. Your culture, which is also owned by everybody, and I believe culture and brand are synonymous with each other. Can't have one without the other. That's what's going to drive referrals. So it's owned by everybody. So let's talk about what that looks like. Sales. Don't ignore influencers. Okay, most salespeople, AEs, SDRs, whatever, they completely ignore people who they don't believe are directly, quote unquote, in their ICP, which is they're not decision makers. The most egregious you see this is with SaaS, but you see it in other verticals as well. Okay. A specific example, I talked about this last week. Consultants are often ignored because they technically don't fit. Like a lot of consultants they might be independent, they might be fractional, they just might be at a small firm, and the firm itself might not fit into the firmographics. Okay, but guess what? If you focus on having conversations with those people, they're much more likely to send you referrals as a salesperson directly. So you can scale that by doing the research up front. Now this is marketing. Figuring out who the right influencers and key opinion leaders are. And also, let's not forget, current and future. So you find some up-and-comers. And invite them onto your podcast. Invite them onto a panel at your next webinar. Invite them, maybe, depending on how big they are, whatever, as a keynote at your next customer conference or user conference. Or at your next customer advisory board meeting. A bunch of other things you can do, right? Co-creating content in a variety of ways. Maybe you, with the organization that they're part of, maybe you develop an industry report that you can then co-market, all sorts of things. Those give your sales team access to those people. They can connect directly. They can do some of the outreach even maybe. I mean, I personally rather have at least some portion of SDRs, if I have them, doing that kind of outreach than doing the crappy cold outbound that you generally see today, which is not going to drive you in your referrals. For that matter, it's most likely to hurt your possibility of getting referrals. So, again, inviting them onto the shows, keeping them in the loop on the content that you're putting out that might be valuable to their network, all that kind of stuff. All right. I mean, with our podcast, it happens very consistently. We have somebody on the show. We have a great conversation. We talk about them mostly. And either before the show or after the show, we just inevitably end up talking shop one way or the other. And some portion of them make introductions for us. That wouldn't be possible if we weren't looking for the right people, and that wouldn't be possible if we weren't making it valuable for them, right? It can't be self-serving. So, marketing. What can marketing do? Well, think about internal personal brand support. We've just built out a program for our internal team, and we're executing it with some of our clients as well, helping our internal team, as many of them as want to and as possible, to create content. Because it's hard. Like, everyone's busy, everyone's got work to do. And while I think a lot of people at this point understand the value of building a personal brand, some of them still just don't know where to start or can't find a way to be consistent. So marketing can help with that. Build a system to help these people create more content. It could be an internal podcast that you create. It could be just one-off asynchronous prompts that you have them respond to. It could be, you could assign topics. You could record your internal meetings. A bunch of different ways you could do it within your existing workflows. But that's one thing. So supporting personal brands, because the more people are out there evangelizing your company, your POV, your culture, etc., the more of these kind of affinity referrals you're going to be able to get, right? Thinking back to the flywheel. But you have to enable that. You have to invest in it. It's an investment. Co-marketing we already talked about. Again, really think about the future. So if you can find some up-and-coming influencers, I really think that's an untapped source of referrals. Because if you can help somebody, quote-unquote, make it, they're much more likely to reciprocate at that point, because they're going to be thankful that you helped them, that you gave them a stage when maybe nobody else would. Strategic partnerships. This one is interesting. I think everybody thinks about, tangential businesses. Yes. But if you remember, we looked at where sources of referrals, and I've got competitors listed here. Okay, this is an interesting and important one. Most people don't think of competitors as a referral source. For that matter, generally we're competing with them, right? Like, we don't want them to know anything about us. But if you look at some of the most successful companies out there, some of the largest companies out there, they build strategic partnerships with those who could be considered competitors. A recent one I just saw, Waymo and Uber. They just launched a partnership where you can get an autonomous Waymo ride through Uber in the Phoenix area. Okay, in theory, they're competitors. Now, I'm not sure. What I don't know is, to be honest, is whether Uber's got an investment in Waymo. I don't believe so. But point is, there's a strategic partnership they created where, in theory, it could be cannibalizing some of Uber's business. I'm sure their economics there in that partnership are built to work and make sense. But again, traditionally, those would be considered competitors. You see a lot of DuPont, big chemical company. They've had all sorts of joint ventures General Mills has as well. 3M has all sorts of stuff. You look at all the big, a whole bunch of Fortune 500s, Fortune 100s, have all sorts of joint ventures, which are often with what would be considered competitors. So really think about where that could work in your favor. Now, it's got to be mutually beneficial, obviously. Events. Going back to, again, what marketing can do. Events like this. This creates opportunities for conversation and for referrals. We were helping a client run an event, I think it was yesterday. It might have been 2 days ago. And one of the director of management that's on that account posted afterwards in the channel saying that they took a screenshot of a comment within the chat of that event that said, hey, it was a question they asked and said, hey, I'm going to refer somebody to you. Okay. Conversations like this, events like this, are opportunities for somebody to get to know you, build affinity toward you, and maybe right away go, you know what, I think I know somebody that might actually benefit from chatting with you. Now, it's no skin off their backs. They don't know you yet. They haven't talked to you directly. And it's an easy, again, it's that affinity referral. You're creating a flywheel to allow for more of those. So events. Again, obviously, you have to have content that's valuable enough. Hopefully this is one of those. You'll tell me if it is. You have to have ideally you have somebody that's manning the chats, that's active, that is able to, engage people, things like that, et cetera, et cetera. Gifts. If you follow Proofpoint, if you follow our team, you know that we're big into gifting. Gabby is our co-founder, my co-founder, and our chief experience officer is the queen of gifting. Investing in gifting strategically can be a huge differentiator for, again, gaining more visibility through a variety of ways. It could be through a formal partner program. So again, we did this because we just enjoy gifting. So again, something to think about is you have to actually enjoy the things that you're going to do. Otherwise, it is very much going to seem disingenuous and people are going to see right through it. Okay, so you can't offer to make connections for people and then when they reach out saying, hey, I'd really love to get connected to so-and-so, you go, nah, or ignoring it or consistently saying you can't or whatever it is, right? So you have to generally want to help people get jobs, make intros. You have to generally enjoy giving gifts. So, but if you do, you can make that an unfair advantage. We just had, again, totally unintended consequence. We just had, we're starting a referral partner network for Proofpoint. A few early folks that have signed up for it. We sent them a nice gift box with a bunch of swag and some goodies and things like that. Nothing too fancy, but it was a nice box. We custom curated it, etc. One of them posted about it on LinkedIn, and it got a ton of engagement. Now, have we gotten anything out of it directly yet? No, but more people know about us now. So that, again, think about affinity referrals, right? It happens. And we've had that happen in the past where somebody shared their gift, somebody else saw it, goes, oh my God, that's awesome. How did you do it? We talk about it, and they go, and at some point they make a referral and say, hey, you should talk to, Mike and Gabby about whatever they can help you. Not about gifting necessarily. All right. Again, a referral culture is owned by everybody. HR. What can HR do to bring referrals in? Your employer brand content. Again, think about the flywheel. If it's good, if it gets people excited about coming to work for you, they might even become evangelists of your brand, of your company, before they even get a job there. They'll attend your events, they'll share things, they'll tag you when somebody's looking for a job or when they believe that somebody's looking for a resource, a vendor, a platform, whatever, product or service, that you might be a good fit for, things like that. If you make that content great, more of those things are going to happen. You're also going to attract more of the right people to actually come work for you when you have open positions, which again, if you remember, fits into that whole referral flywheel. The more people that work for you that get your vision, that get behind it, that can evangelize it, the more of these, again, affinity referrals you're going to be able to drive. Not to mention relationship-based referrals as they come into your organization and, they really trust you and they like what you do, etc. Your hiring experience. I brought this up last time. Okay? Totally unintended consequence. We wanted to have a best-in-class hiring experience anyway, because we are a people-first organization. We want everybody, experience is really important to us across the board. Employees, people coming through our recruiting pipeline, potential clients, actual clients, past clients, etc. Current and past employees. People experiences are core to our culture. So we wanted to do this anyway. But again, I mentioned this last time. We tried something kind of out of the blue, slightly different. And all of a sudden, we've got one of the people that came through our candidate pipeline that wants to make referrals. Several people said that they're going to try to bring us in when they land somewhere. Other people have recommended others to come check out positions, which again, think Flywheel. Okay? Offboarding experience. I already mentioned an example of a past agency I used to work for. My former boss, Nina Hale, she no longer runs the agency. She sold it. But that was, again, a core part of the strategy because she really believed in it and wanted to do it, but also saw results from it. Placing people that didn't fit within your organization but would fit better elsewhere. That agency was able to get business that way. Okay, you can scale that. Here's an idea. You can, maybe you build a marketplace for a jobs marketplace. You can help people find jobs. That's a way to scale that. You have to test other things first to get up to that level. But that's something HR, usually with the help of marketing, could do. Customer experience. This one's probably pretty straightforward, but think about your client offboarding experience. Everyone's going to lose clients. Some level of churn is natural for every business. It can be for a variety of reasons. Now, hopefully it's not because you didn't deliver and they hate your guts because you wasted their money. Probably not going to get a referral out of that one. But if you've built up a good reputation, if you deliver great results, but maybe they just outgrew you. Maybe their budgets got cut. Maybe it's no longer a fit for you because you're shifting into a different market. Whatever it is, okay? The way that you offboard a client or customer can have all the impact in the world to having past customers be a referral source. So again, you operationalize that by building a standard offboarding plan where it's a standard experience that everybody gets, and it's got to be an amazing one. We do that, by the way. Every client we've ever offboarded has thanked us for the way that we've done it. Customer advisory boards. These are a great way for customer success to make an impact on referrals. I used to work for an organization that they put a lot of effort into their customer summit, and as part of that summit, they have the advisory board. I mean, the number of referrals that came out of those conversations was crazy, all the time, because you're making people feel like they're being heard, and then you're actually doing things based on that, and they see it, they're more likely to refer. Pretty straightforward there. But then also think about all the way back to the beginning, creating content that creates affinity. customer success is often the best position to get testimonials and case studies. So creating a system for how they can do it, how they can ask for it. Maybe there's an incentive for your clients to do it, whatever it is, but collecting that content and then using that up front to, again, drive that initial affinity, showing through your marketing, showing your reputation is absolutely critical. I'll pull up the flywheel one more time before we wrap up here. So this is where everything starts, with affinity. Getting people in your ICP excited about your ideas and your people. So really think about how you can scale that. That will create all sorts of opportunities for all these other referral types. And again, think broader than just partner programs. And where you're thinking about your marketing, your demand gen programs, think about, how do I create affinity? How do I operationalize the referrals that can come from there? Who do I need to get in front of? Not just my decision makers. How do I enable my employees to evangelize, to share content, to create content of their own, all these types of things. Okay? In the grand scheme of things, the foundation is the key here. That means your culture. I already talked about that. Your culture is core to this. If you don't have a well-defined culture, and again, everybody says the whole thing of, culture is not ping pong tables and free lunches and beer or whatever. It's not. But your culture has to be about your vision, the overall business case, the brand, the vision for client and employee experience. All of that is your culture. If that is not well defined, if people don't get it, if they can't evangelize it, none of this stuff that we talked about matters. It's not going to work. Your reputation. Again, you think it's straightforward, but yes, you got to do good work, but you also have to have a system for showing the good work that you do. A lot of companies miss out on that. And then last but not least is really understand the ecosystem. Understand who are the various players involved, who can refer business, how do you get in front of them, what's the right way, how do you get them into your orbit, and then thinking about all these different, again, I'll call them referral nodes. How can you get more referral nodes and make them more higher quality? So again, culture, reputation, understand the ecosystem. All right, I think I've chatted for quite a while. We're pretty much at time here. If anybody's got questions, pop them into the chat. If anybody wants to talk live, I think we've got about 5 minutes left here, so I'm happy to bring somebody on to chat live. Other than that, I'm going to turn on some music here for a bit. If anybody wants to hang out and chat, I'll stop and answer some questions. But thank you all for joining, and we'll see you all next week. Actually, you won't see me next week. That's a quick announcement. I'm going to be on sabbatical for a month. So you won't see me for a few weeks. Joseph's going to be running the show. There's going to be a few other folks from Proofpoint. Some really great content coming up around relationship-like growth, obviously, specifically around like personal brands and things like that, and how to operationalize them and activate people, and a bunch of other topics. So make sure you join. And like I said, we will see y'all next week.